The moment everything changed. The Harmony Prime space station hung like a crystalline jewel against the backdrop of an unfamiliar star system, its intricate design a testament to galactic engineering. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez adjusted her diplomatic attire, a carefully selected ensemble that blended human cultural sophistication with diplomatic practicality. Each thread of her clothing was subtly embedded with quantum communication threads, a discrete demonstration of human technological innovation. She stood in the central negotiation chamber, a vast circular room where holographic representations of star charts and diplomatic treaties danced around the periphery. The Zarkon delegates towered around her, their exoskeletal forms a mosaic of metallic plates and bioluminescent nodes that pulsed with intricate communication patterns. To human eyes, they resembled a cross between massive arthropods and living machinery, each movement calculated, each gesture laden with millennia of imperial protocol. Grand Counselor Vexnar, the lead Zarkon representative, maintained a position of calculated superiority. His multiple compound eyes tracked Elena's every movement, shifting between wavelengths of perception that humans could never comprehend. The translation device around her neck worked overtime, converting not just words but intricate layers of contextual meaning that existed between species. The human delegation proposes a mutual defense and technology exchange protocol, Elena stated, her voice steady and clear. Behind her, a holographic representation of Earth rotated slowly, a blue-green reminder of the planet she represented. Our research indicates potential symbiotic benefits for both our civilizations. Vexinar's mandibles clicked in a pattern that the translation device interpreted as diplomatic dismissal. Humanity remains a Classification 3 emerging species, he responded. Your technological capabilities are, at best, primitive. The Galactic Concordance does not recognize your current status as a negotiable entity. Elena had prepared for this. Months of diplomatic training, years of cultural research, and a lifetime of ambition had led her to this moment. She activated a holographic display that showed several key human technological achievements, quantum computing breakthroughs, advanced medical nanotechnology, and sustainable energy solutions that had transformed Earth's environmental challenges. Our capabilities extend beyond traditional metrics, she countered. We've demonstrated rapid adaptive technology and the Grand Counselor's movement was so swift that few could track it. Energy restraints materialized from hidden emitters, instantly binding Elena. The holographic displays shattered, replaced by a cold institutional lighting that seemed to drain color from the room. The human ambassador is hereby charged with unauthorized technological representation and violation of preliminary first contact protocols, Vexnar proclaimed. The chamber's acoustics carried his voice with surgical precision, ensuring every delegate would witness what was to come. Elena did not struggle. Her training had prepared her for multiple diplomatic scenarios, but more importantly, her mission transcended this individual moment. Every movement, every word was now being recorded and transmitted back to Earth. The Zarkon had made a critical miscalculation. They believed this was a moment of subjugation, a public demonstration of their galactic dominance. They did not understand that they were creating a catalyst. Vexnar approached, his towering form casting a shadow over Elena. Your species lacks the fundamental understanding of galactic diplomacy. This execution serves as a clear message to all emerging civilizations. She met his gaze directly. No fear, no anger, just a profound, unbreakable determination that seemed to unsettle even the most seasoned Zarkon delegates. Her translation device, still active, captured her final statement with crystalline clarity. Humanity will remember this moment, and we will respond. The execution was meant to be clinical, a bureaucratic elimination designed to reinforce the Zarkon Empire's absolute authority. Energy weapons charge, their molecular disruptors calibrated to eliminate any trace of human biological material. What the Zarkon did not understand was that every moment was being recorded, not just by the station's systems, but by Elena's quantum-encrypted communication threads woven into her clothing. Her final broadcast would become more than a diplomatic incident. It would be a declaration of something far more profound. As the energy weapon prepared to discharge, Ambassador Elena Rodriguez became something greater than an individual diplomat. She transformed into a symbol, a beacon that would ignite an entire species' collective response. The moment the transmission reached Earth, everything would change. The Crucible of Unity. The transmission reached Earth at 3:15 Coordinated Universal Time, a moment that would be etched into human history forever. Ambassador Rodriguez's final broadcast cut through every communication network, her message a crystalline declaration that bypassed diplomatic encryption and governmental firewalls. In the United Nations headquarters in New York, the emergency session erupted into a cacophony of emotions. Delegates from every continent stood in shocked silence as the holographic replay of Elena Rodriguez's execution played on repeat. Her final words, "Humanity will remember this moment, and we will respond," hung in the air like a promise and a challenge. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo, the chief of the United Earth Scientific Consortium, watched the replay for the 13th time. Her fingers traced the holographic interface, analyzing every microscopic detail of the transmission. Something about the quantum encrypted threads in Rodriguez's clothing suggested a deeper purpose, a fail-safe, perhaps, or a method of information transfer that went beyond traditional communication. This was intentional, she muttered to herself, drawing the attention of her colleagues. She knew exactly what she was doing. Across the globe, something unprecedented began to happen. The transmission triggered a cascade of responses that defied historical patterns of human behavior. In research laboratories, universities, and military installations, a collective awakening took place. At the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, a team of quantum physicists who had been working on theoretical faster-than-light communication suddenly found their seemingly impossible research becoming a priority. Funding that would have taken years to secure materialized overnight. Graduate students who had been working part-time jobs to support their research were now given unlimited resources. In the Silicon Valley tech corridors, competing technology companies set aside decades of rivalry. Apple, Google, SpaceX, and a dozen smaller innovative firms began a collaborative effort that would have been unimaginable mere hours earlier. Their best minds were pulled into what was quickly becoming a planet-wide mission. The military response was equally transformative. General Marcus Chen, commander of the United Earth Defense Force, activated protocols that had existed only in theoretical war games. Military branches that had traditionally operated in isolation now shared every piece of strategic information. Naval strategists worked alongside aerospace engineers. Cybersecurity experts collaborated with quantum computing specialists. In universities around the world, entire departments were restructured. Theoretical research became practical application. A physicist working on quantum entanglement would find herself suddenly collaborating with a materials engineer developing adaptive armor. A computer scientist specializing in predictive algorithms would be paired with a xenolinguistics expert trying to understand alien communication patterns. The transformation wasn't just institutional, it was deeply personal. In Lagos, Nigeria, a young engineer named Folake Adebayo watched the transmission and immediately began redesigning her neural interface communication technology. What was once a speculative research project became a critical component of a potential interstellar defense system. In Tokyo, a group of robotics engineers who had been working on advanced prosthetic technologies realized their work could be adapted for space combat environments. Their designs, previously considered too radical, were now fast-tracked for immediate development. The United Earth Council convened not as a bureaucratic assembly, but as a war room of passionate, determined leaders. Politicians who had spent careers arguing over minor policy differences now spoke with a unified voice. The old divisions of nationality, ethnicity, and economic status seemed to dissolve in the face of a greater challenge. Dr. Okonkwo's analysis of Rodriguez's final transmission revealed something extraordinary. The quantum encrypted threads were more than just a communication method. They were a comprehensive data transfer system. Embedded within the transmission were research notes, technological schematics, and strategic insights that suggested the ambassador had been preparing for this moment long before the diplomatic meeting. She knew. Dr. Okonkwo explained to the United Earth Council. Ambassador Rodriguez understood that this was never just a diplomatic mission. This was the first stage of a much larger strategy. The children watched their parents work with a sense of purpose that transcended normal understanding. Schools modified their curricula in real time. Science and technology education became a global priority. The entire planet seemed to be recalibrating itself, transforming from a collection of competing nations into a unified organism with a singular purpose. Humanity was no longer just preparing for a potential conflict. They were reimagining themselves, their potential, their capabilities, their very understanding of what it meant to be a spacefaring civilization. The Zarkon had intended to deliver a message of subjugation. Instead, they had ignited something far more powerful. A revolution had begun. The innovation explosion. The research facility buried deep beneath the Atacama Desert looked nothing like a traditional laboratory. Massive quantum processors hummed with an energy that seemed alive, their cooling systems drawing power from geothermal sources that snaked through the Earth's crust. Dr. Marcus Chen stood at the center of what had become humanity's most critical technological proving ground, watching as generations of theoretical research collapsed into practical innovation. We're not just developing technology, he explained to the mixed team of scientists, engineers, and military strategists surrounding him. We're rewriting the fundamental understanding of what's possible. The breakthrough came from an unexpected intersection of disciplines. A team of neurobiologists working alongside quantum physicists had discovered a method to create adaptive neural networks that could process information faster than any known computational system. What began as research into human brain plasticity transformed into the core of a revolutionary artificial intelligence system. Dr. Lena Rodriguez, no relation to the executed ambassador, but carrying the same fierce determination, demonstrated the first prototype. A holographic display materialized, showing a complex network of interconnected nodes that seemed to breathe and pulse with living intelligence. Traditional AI systems try to mimic human thought, she explained. Our system doesn't just mimic, it anticipates, adapts, and evolves in real time. The military strategists watched in stunned silence as the AI system began simulating complex galactic conflict scenarios. It didn't just run simulations, it learned from them, developing strategies that no human mind could have conceived. Each scenario became a learning opportunity, each potential conflict a chance to refine and improve. In orbital research stations, engineers were making equally remarkable progress. The Adaptive Armor Project had moved beyond theoretical designs. Nanomaterial researchers had developed a skin-like protective layer that could reconfigure its molecular structure instantaneously. A projectile approaching at hypersonic speeds would find the armor changing its density, dispersing kinetic energy in ways that defied traditional physics. Dr. Hiroshi Nakamura, leading the materials science team, demonstrated the technology's capabilities. A high-energy plasma bolt fired at a test panel, a weapon that would have vaporized traditional armor, instead dissipated across the surface, leaving nothing more than a slight shimmer. Adaptation is our greatest weapon, Nakamura explained. We're not trying to create an impenetrable defense. We're creating a living, thinking protective system. The communication technology developed alongside the defensive systems was equally revolutionary. Dr. Aisha Okonkwo's team had cracked the quantum communication challenge that had stumped researchers for decades. Their breakthrough allowed for instantaneous communication across vast distances, utilizing principles of quantum entanglement that previous generations had considered impossible. We're not just sending messages, Okonkwo explained during a global broadcast. We're creating a communication network that transcends traditional spatial limitations. Distance becomes irrelevant. In the hidden shipyards orbiting Jupiter, a new class of starships took shape. These were not mere vessels. They were living systems that integrated human intelligence with adaptive technological capabilities. Each ship was essentially a massive, mobile neural network, capable of making strategic decisions faster than any traditional command structure. The propulsion systems represented another leap forward. Drawing from theoretical research into exotic matter and quantum tunneling, the new engines could manipulate space-time itself. What once took months of travel could now be traversed in days, with precision that seemed to defy the known laws of physics. Young researchers who had been working on speculative projects suddenly found themselves at the forefront of humanity's greatest technological revolution. A doctoral candidate's thesis on quantum communication became the foundation for faster-than-light information transfer. A robotics engineer's experimental adaptive prosthetic design transformed into the control interface for the new generation of combat systems. The global effort transcended traditional boundaries. Research stations in the Atacama Desert collaborated in real time with teams in Tokyo, Moscow, and Cape Town. Open-source platforms allowed for unprecedented levels of collaborative development. Every breakthrough was immediately shared, every discovery built upon collectively. Dr. Chen looked out over the research facility, understanding that they were doing more than preparing for a potential conflict. They were redefining what it meant to be a technological species. The Zarkon thought they were dealing with a primitive civilization. He said quietly to his team, "They don't understand that our greatest strength has always been our ability to adapt, to learn, to transform." The innovation explosion had begun, and humanity was just getting started. The silent strike. The first assault began with absolute silence. Commander Elena Rodriguez's sister, Captain Maria Rodriguez, stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, her fingers hovering above a holographic interface that pulsed with quantum-encrypted data streams. The ship was unlike any vessel in human history, a living system that integrated biological and technological networks in ways the Zarkon could never comprehend. Initiating first-phase infiltration, she commanded, her voice steady and clear. Across the galaxy, hundreds of quantum-entangled communication nodes activated simultaneously. These were not traditional weapons, but something far more insidious. Developed by the most brilliant minds humanity could assemble, the attack was a surgical strike against the Zarkon Empire's most critical infrastructure. The first target was the Zarkon Communication Network, a system they believed was impenetrable. Adaptive algorithms developed by Dr. Aisha Okonkwo's team began to weave through the alien communication matrix. These were not simple viruses or traditional cyber weapons. Each algorithm was a living, learning entity that could reshape itself in milliseconds, exploiting the tiniest vulnerabilities. Entire communication sectors went dark, not with explosions or dramatic visual displays, but with a systematic, methodical shutdown that left the Zarkon leadership confused and increasingly panicked. On the primary Zarkon administrative hub, a massive space station orbiting their home system's central star, communication officers watched in growing horror as their most secure networks began to dissolve. Quantum-encrypted messages became garbled. Strategic communication channels collapsed. The very infrastructure of their galactic communication system was being dismantled from within. Captain Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest smile. This was more than an attack. It was a message. Each defeated communication node displayed a holographic image. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, her final moments frozen in time, her last words echoing across alien communication systems. Humanity will remember this moment, and we will respond. The second phase targeted the Zarkon's strategic military installations, adaptive nanite swarms, developed in the hidden research facilities beneath the Atacama Desert, infiltrated defensive systems. These were not traditional weapons, but living technological organisms that could reshape themselves, learn, and adapt in microseconds. Massive defense platforms found their energy systems inexplicably neutralized. Weapon systems that had maintained galactic dominance for millennia simply stopped functioning. No explosions, no dramatic destruction, just a systematic, precise shutdown that left the Zarkon leadership bewildered. They don't understand. Dr. Marcus Chen explained to the United Earth Council, watching the operation in real time. We're not fighting their war. We're fighting a war they cannot comprehend. The third phase was perhaps the most psychologically devastating. Human intelligence teams, working with advanced predictive AI systems, began to leak carefully curated information throughout the Zarkon communication networks. Strategic vulnerabilities, historical miscalculations, potential internal conflicts. Each piece of information was designed to create maximum psychological disruption. Zarkon military commanders found their most secure communication channels compromised. Strategic meetings were infiltrated. Internal discussions became public. The very fabric of their hierarchical society began to unravel. Grand Counselor Vexnar received the first direct communication, a quantum-encrypted message that bypassed all traditional security protocols. It was a recording of Ambassador Rodriguez's final moments, her message of defiance playing on an endless loop. "This is not about victory," the message implied. "This is about changing the very nature of conflict." Across their colonies, Zarkon citizens began to question the narrative they had been told for generations. The image of human weakness, carefully cultivated over centuries, was systematically dismantled. On Earth, the operation was monitored from a massive, hidden command center. Military strategists, scientists, and diplomatic experts worked in perfect synchronization. This was not just a military strike. It was a comprehensive dismantling of an empire's psychological infrastructure. Captain Maria Rodriguez watched the operation unfold, thinking of her sister. This was more than revenge. This was a statement about human potential, about the power of collective innovation and determination. Phase 1 complete, she announced to her crew, preparing for the next stage. The Zarkon had believed humanity was weak. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The adaptive battlefield. The Zarkon response came swiftly and with overwhelming force. 3 entire battle groups emerged from quantum tunneling points, their massive warships designed to obliterate entire planetary systems. Each vessel represented millennia of technological refinement, weapons that had crushed countless civilizations, shields that had repelled the most advanced attacks known to the galactic community. They would learn that humanity was not like any civilization they had encountered before. Aboard the UES Defiance, Commander Maria Rodriguez watched the incoming fleet with a calm that surprised even her most seasoned tactical officers. The ship's neural interface, a living network that integrated human intuition with quantum computational power, was already analyzing millions of potential engagement scenarios. Incoming wave of plasma torpedoes, Lieutenant Kai Zhang announced. His neural link with the ship's systems meant the warning was simultaneous with the threat detection. Conventional evasion protocols suggest. Before he could finish, the ship had already responded. The adaptive nano-armor began to reconfigure at the molecular level, its structure shifting to absorb and dissipate the incoming energy. Where traditional shields would have collapsed, the Defiance seemed to breathe and adapt, turning potentially devastating attacks into harmless energy dispersals. Dr. Marcus Chen's predictive AI system, now fully integrated into human military strategy, was working overtime. Each Zarkon attack became an instantaneous learning opportunity. The AI didn't just predict enemy movements, it anticipated them, creating counter-strategies faster than the Zarkon could implement their original plans. They're using a cascading quantum interference pattern, Dr. Chen observed from the Earth-based command center. Classic third-generation Zarkon battle formation. Watch how we respond. The human fleet moved with a fluidity that defied traditional military doctrine. Ships that seemed to be retreating were actually repositioning. Defensive formations transformed into attack vectors in milliseconds. Where the Zarkon expected rigid military structures, they encountered a living, breathing tactical organism. Captain Aisha Okonkwo, leading a squadron of stealth destroyers, demonstrated the new approach to space warfare. Her ships didn't just move, they became part of the battlefield. Quantum camouflage technology allowed them to bend light and energy signatures, effectively becoming invisible until the moment of attack. "We're not trying to win through overwhelming force," she explained during a real-time strategic briefing. "We're winning by redefining the very nature of conflict." The Zarkon discovered this the hard way. Their most advanced tracking systems became useless. Weapons designed to track specific energy signatures found themselves targeting nothing but empty space. Human ships appeared and disappeared, striking with precision that seemed to defy the laws of physics. On the bridge of the lead Zarkon battleship, Grand Tactical Coordinator Zexlar watched in growing horror. Their battle simulations, developed over thousands of years of galactic conquest, were becoming useless. Every strategic pattern they implemented was countered before it could be fully executed. "They're learning faster than we can attack," one of his tactical advisors reported, mandibles clicking with a mixture of fear and professional concern. "Our attack vectors are being predicted and neutralized in real time." The human response wasn't just technological, it was psychological. Holographic transmissions accompanied each strike, displaying Ambassador Elena Rodriguez's final moments. It was a form of warfare the Zarkon had never encountered. An attack that targeted not just physical infrastructure, but the very psychological foundation of their military culture. Adaptive medical systems aboard human ships transformed the traditional understanding of battlefield medicine. Injured crew members were not just treated, they were rapidly enhanced. Nano-regenerative systems could rebuild damaged tissue in minutes. Neural interfaces allowed injured personnel to continue contributing to the mission, their consciousness integrated directly into the ship's systems. "We're not just fighting," Commander Rodriguez said quietly to her crew. "We're demonstrating a fundamental truth about our species." The battle became a living testament to human potential. Each moment was an evolution, each attack a learning opportunity. The Zarkon discovered that they were not fighting a traditional military force, but a collective intelligence that could adapt faster than any known civilization. As the first wave of Zarkon ships began to retreat, something became abundantly clear. Humanity was not just participating in a war. They were rewriting the very rules of conflict. The adaptive battlefield had just begun. Allies of the oppressed. The communication came from an unexpected source. An encrypted quantum transmission from the Vornak mining colonies, a civilization that had been under Zarkon subjugation for over 12 generations. The message was simple, yet carried the weight of centuries of suppressed hope. "We are listening." Dr. Elena Reyes, head of the United Earth Diplomatic Corps, understood the significance of this moment. The transmission wasn't just a message. It was a crack in the foundation of the Zarkon Empire's galactic dominance. The Vornak were silicon-based lifeforms who had been reduced to little more than resource extraction laborers under Zarkon rule. Their homeworld, a massive crystalline planet rich in rare minerals, had been systematically stripped of its resources for millennia. Generations of Vornak had lived and died under a system that treated them as nothing more than organic machinery. Humanity's initial attacks had done more than demonstrate military capability. They had shown something far more profound, that resistance was possible. In the hidden diplomatic chambers beneath the United Earth headquarters, a new kind of war room took shape. It wasn't filled with military strategists, but with linguists, cultural experts, and diplomats who understood that the most powerful weapon was communication. Dr. Rice assembled a team that defied traditional diplomatic approaches. Xenolinguists worked alongside quantum communication experts. Cultural anthropologists collaborated with strategic analysts. Their mission was not just to gather allies, but to understand the deep psychological wounds inflicted by centuries of galactic oppression. The first breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A team led by Dr. Kai Zhang discovered that the quantum communication threads used in Ambassador Rodriguez's final transmission could be adapted to create a universal translation matrix that went beyond simple language conversion. This system could translate not just words, but cultural context, emotional nuance, and historical trauma. "We're not just communicating," Dr. Zhang explained. "We're creating a platform for shared understanding." The Vornak were just the beginning. Reports began to stream in from dozens of subjugated civilizations. the Kelthari crystal singers, whose musical culture had been systematically suppressed. The aquatic Nurael, whose oceanic worlds had been turned into massive industrial complexes. The gaseous beings of the Zephyr Collective, who had been reduced to atmospheric processors for Zarkon industrial needs. Each civilization had a story. Each had been waiting for a moment of hope. Diplomatic envoys began to appear in systems long isolated by Zarkon control. These were not traditional ambassadors, but teams of specialists who understood that liberation was more than a military action. It was a complex process of cultural restoration and mutual understanding. Human technology played a crucial role. The adaptive communication systems developed to counter Zarkon networks now became tools of liberation. Encrypted channels allowed subjugated civilizations to communicate without Zarkon monitoring. Information networks that had been suppressed for generations suddenly found new life. On the Vornak mining colonies, workers began to realize that their resistance could take new forms. Subtle sabotage of industrial systems, information sharing, small acts of defiance that, when coordinated, could bring entire resource extraction operations to a halt. The United Earth Intelligence Division, working with their new allies, began to map the complex network of Zarkon control. It wasn't just a military operation, it was a comprehensive deconstruction of an oppressive system. Commander Maria Rodriguez oversaw a series of strategic interventions that went beyond traditional military strikes. Communication satellites deployed in suppressed systems, quantum communication nodes that could bypass Zarkon monitoring, technology transfers that gave subjugated civilizations the tools to resist. This isn't about conquering, she explained during a strategic briefing. This is about liberation. The Zarkon leadership watched in growing horror as their carefully constructed galactic order began to unravel. Colonies they had controlled for generations suddenly became unpredictable. Communication networks they had relied on for centuries became unreliable. What had begun as humanity's personal vendetta was transforming into something far larger, a comprehensive challenge to a system of galactic oppression. In the hidden research facilities on Earth, Dr. Rice looked at the growing network of allied civilizations. Each transmission, each new connection, was a testament to something profound. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as liberators. The alliance was just beginning. The final confrontation, the battle for the Zarkon home system, began not with a traditional military assault, but with a complete systemic collapse. Millions of quantum communication nodes, developed in humanity's hidden research facilities, activated simultaneously across Zarkon space. These were not mere weapons, but living networks of adaptive intelligence that had been learning, growing, and preparing for this moment. Commander Maria Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, her neural interface merging with the ship's consciousness. Around her, a fleet unlike any in galactic history assembled. Vessels that were part machine, part living organism, each ship a testament to human innovation and adaptive potential. The first wave of the assault targeted the Zarkon's critical infrastructure. Communication networks dissolved from within. Energy distribution systems collapsed. Strategic defense platforms found themselves turned against their own creators, their complex systems hijacked by adaptive algorithms that moved faster than organic thought could comprehend. Grand Counselor Vexnar watched in growing horror from the central command station of the Zarkon primary defense platform. Millennia of galactic dominance were unraveling in moments. Their most secure systems, developed over thousands of years of technological refinement, became vulnerabilities in seconds. "This is impossible," a tactical advisor muttered, mandibles clicking with a mixture of fear and professional disbelief. But it was happening. The allied civilizations that humanity had liberated now played a crucial role. The Vornak mining colonies redirected massive industrial networks. The Kelthari crystal singers used their unique quantum resonance technologies to disrupt Zarkon defensive systems. The aquatic Nurael provided critical intelligence that had been accumulated over generations of forced labor. What made the human approach unique was its comprehensive nature. This was not just a military conflict, it was a total systems disruption. Dr. Marcus Chen's predictive AI systems had been working for months, analyzing every possible Zarkon defensive strategy. The result was a battle plan that was less a traditional military assault and more a surgical deconstruction of an entire civilization's infrastructure. "We're not destroying," Dr. Chen explained to the United Earth Council. "We're creating an opportunity for systemic transformation." The space around the Zarkon home system transformed into a living battlefield. Human ships moved with a fluidity that defied traditional understanding of space combat. They were not individual vessels, but a collective intelligence, each ship communicating and adapting in microseconds. Adaptive nano-armor absorbed incoming weapons fire, transforming destructive energy into additional power for the fleet. Quantum communication networks allowed for instantaneous strategic adjustments that the Zarkon leadership could not comprehend, let alone counter. Ambassador Rodriguez's final transmission continued to play across Zarkon communication networks, a psychological warfare technique that went beyond traditional military strategy. Her message of defiance became a rallying cry for oppressed civilizations, a symbol of resistance that cut deeper than any weapon. The Zarkon discovered that humanity had been preparing for this moment not just militarily, but culturally, technologically, and philosophically. Every aspect of their civilization had been a preparation for this confrontation. Vornak mining ships, long considered nothing more than resource extraction vehicles, transformed into formidable combat platforms. The Keltheri, whose musical culture had been suppressed, used quantum resonance technologies that disrupted Zarkon defensive systems in ways no traditional weapon could. Commander Rodriguez watched as the battle unfolded, understanding that this was more than a military victory. This was a comprehensive deconstruction of a system of galactic oppression. "Final phase initiating," she announced, her voice calm and clear. The adaptive AI systems began their most critical operation, not destruction, but systematic transformation. Critical infrastructure was not obliterated but repurposed. Communication networks were redirected. Energy systems were carefully dismantled and prepared for reconstruction. Grand Counselor Vexnar realized, in the final moments, that they were not facing a traditional enemy. Humanity had introduced a new paradigm of conflict, one based on liberation, adaptation, and collective potential. The Zarkon home system did not burn. It transformed. As the final defensive systems collapsed, a new possibility emerged, not of total destruction, but of comprehensive change. The battle was over. The real work was just beginning. A new galactic dawn. 5 years after the fall of the Zarkon Empire, the galaxy looked fundamentally different. The United Earth Diplomatic and Reconstruction Council convened on Harmony Prime, the same space station where Ambassador Elena Rodriguez had been executed, now transformed into a center of galactic cooperation. Representatives from over 127 different civilizations filled the circular chamber, a testament to the profound changes that had swept through the known universe. Dr. Elena Reyes, now the primary architect of galactic reconstruction, stood at the center of the chamber. Her presentation hologram showed the comprehensive transformation that had occurred. Where once there had been oppressive imperial control, now there were collaborative networks of technological and cultural exchange. "We are not conquerors," she explained to the assembled delegates. "We are facilitators of a new possibility." The reconstruction effort was unlike any in galactic history. Human teams worked alongside liberated civilizations, focusing not on replacement, but on collaborative rebuilding. The Vornak mining colonies were being transformed into centers of scientific research. The Keltheri crystal singers were developing new communication technologies that merged their unique quantum resonance capabilities with human adaptive network systems. Commander Maria Rodriguez oversaw the military transition, working to dismantle the infrastructure of oppression while protecting the emerging democratic systems. The human fleet, once a weapon of liberation, was now becoming a peacekeeping and scientific exploration force. On Earth, the transformation was equally profound. The global unity that had emerged during the conflict had fundamentally changed human society. Educational systems were completely restructured. Every child now learned multiple alien languages, studied galactic ecology, and understood the importance of interspecies cooperation. The technological breakthroughs that had been developed for the conflict now found peaceful applications. Adaptive medical nanotechnology, developed for battlefield healing, was revolutionizing healthcare across multiple species. Quantum communication networks became platforms for unprecedented cultural exchange. Dr. Marcus Chen's predictive AI systems, which had been crucial in the conflict, were now being applied to addressing complex galactic challenges. Climate restoration projects on devastated worlds. Resource management for civilizations recovering from centuries of exploitation. Conflict resolution mechanisms that went beyond traditional diplomatic approaches. The memorial to Ambassador Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the new Galactic Cooperation Center. It was not a monument of war, but a living museum of transformation. Interactive displays showed her final transmission, not as an act of defiance, but as a moment of profound possibility. We remember not to celebrate conflict, the museum's introduction stated, but to understand the potential of collective action. The economic systems that emerged were equally revolutionary. Traditional models of resource extraction were replaced by collaborative development frameworks. The Neural aquatic engineers worked alongside human environmental specialists to develop sustainable ecosystem restoration technologies. The Zephyr Collective shared atmospheric processing techniques that could heal worlds damaged by centuries of industrial exploitation. At the United Earth Research Academy, students from across the galaxy studied together. A young Vornak crystal researcher worked alongside a human quantum physicist. A Kelferi musical communication expert collaborated with a human linguistic anthropologist. The boundaries between species began to blur, replaced by a shared commitment to discovery and mutual understanding. The galactic communication networks that had been developed during the conflict now became platforms for unprecedented cultural exchange. Translation systems went beyond mere language conversion, capturing the nuanced emotional and cultural contexts of communication. Commander Rodriguez reflected on the journey during a private moment. The conflict had not been about destruction, but about creating a new possibility. The human approach had been fundamentally different from previous galactic powers, a focus on liberation, cooperation, and mutual growth. "We didn't win a war," she often explained to young cadets. "We opened a door to a different way of existing." The final report from the Galactic Reconstruction Council told a story of transformation. Hundreds of worlds liberated, thousands of species finding new paths of development, a comprehensive dismantling of systems of oppression, replaced by collaborative networks of mutual support. Ambassador Rodriguez's final transmission continued to play a role, not as a call to conflict, but as a reminder of the moment everything changed, a testament to the power of determination, innovation, and the belief that something different was possible. As the first joint human-allied exploration vessels prepared to chart unknown regions of the galaxy, something profound became clear. This was not an ending. This was a beginning.